Hello, everybody. Welcome to MT Guitar. Today is our first interview with Scott Decker, who is a good friend of mine and a wonderful guitarist composer. I've known Scott for probably 15 years or even 16 or 17, who knows. We met in Santa Rosa Junior College, where we were both aspiring guitarists in our early 20s, late teens.
Totally, dude.
So, yeah, so
Guitar
welcome,
nerds.
Scott. Thanks so much
Hey,
for
thanks,
joining us.
dude. Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, dude. It's a pleasure. I'm happy to be the first one up, dude. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And so you're our first interview, and I was thinking about when I was starting out, really getting to know the guitar in a serious way. You were somebody that I kind of looked up to, and somebody
mm.
that
Shoot, thanks, dude.
sort of was a peer, but you had a really good handle on the guitar, and so I've always kind of thought that. So when I was thinking about this channel and who I'd like to interview first, I thought of you because we've
Damn,
had
man.
some amazing jams, we've
Oh,
played
hell
some
yeah.
great performances and stuff, and been in a couple ensembles, done some live streams. So welcome and thanks for joining.
Thanks, man. No, it's been a pleasure, dude. Absolutely. Anytime I've had a chance to jam with you, dude, it's always been a pleasure, as you know.
Yeah,
We just get them vibes going. It's fantastic. So
exactly.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I guess one thing I'm wondering about for the channel's sake is what got you into guitar? What were some of your early sort of inspirations or influences? Maybe just walk us through
Totally.
the beginning phases of your musicianship with guitar and how that kind of happened.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I won't get too long-winded, but maybe I will just a little bit.
Oh,
But
good.
totally, man. So like, I'll say the cliche thing of saying like, I didn't choose the guitar; it kind of chose me,
Ah,
right? So I'm the youngest of two. I have an older brother, and he's 4 years older than me. So he had some older friends always coming and going during high school and younger years, and one of his friends was a guitar player
hmm,
and he used to bring his electric guitar. I think it was a Strat, like a black Strat. And
ah,
I home, and he always they left it one day in my brother's bedroom, and of course they were like, "Don't touch it, dude."
yeah.
And I would I would walk by his bedroom and see it there, and it was all of a sudden just like, whoa, like the clouds parted,
The
and
halo.
like it was like
Yeah.
come and touch this. And that was my first draw. Like it literally was like reeling me in. And
Wow.
so of course I went in and was just like, give me that, dude, and no idea what I'm
I
doing.
want that.
Yeah, like no idea what I'm doing, but like it just like called to me.
How old were
And
you when that happened?
I was probably 11 or
Okay.
12.
Prime
11 or
prime
12.
time.
Yeah, prime time, dude. So where it was just like, hello. Yeah, so it was just like this, black Strat, nothing super special, but it just was like, dun, dun, here I am for you now.
My
So
first
yeah,
electric
dude.
was a black Strat, so I can totally relate to that excitement.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, and we got like the Gilmore thing going
Oh,
on.
so
Totally. But yeah, so anyways, that started it all. And then after I got my hands on it, I basically was kind of obsessed. I was like, okay, how does this thing work? What do we do? So my parents saw that and were supportive of it, and they asked a friend to borrow their acoustic, naturally. And they had this kind of, I call it like an attic guitar, man. Like it was this acoustic that, like hard to play, but I still was like, yes,
yes,
finally I have something I can use.
it's
I
something.
started on, yeah, so I started on noodling around with that, and then eventually we were kind of like, let's look at lessons, man. So I kind of just noodled around maybe for the first, I don't know, 6 months, 4 months after realizing like I had to play this thing. Found a teacher. And then by that time, I think at one birthday, my parents got me an electric guitar. They got me a Fernandez Strat,
Mm.
and I was like, "Oh my god, thank you!" I thought it was amazing.
Ah,
So I
electric.
started, yes, I was like, "Oh, no electric." And so I started taking lessons right around that same time. So I was like 12 probably by that time.
Okay.
And it's with a player you might know, Chris Pimentel
Oh
here
yeah,
in Snow
Pimentel.
County. Yeah, so Chris, man, he
He's a
was my
monster player. Yeah.
first monster player. He was my first teacher.
Right.
And like I kind of owe honestly like all my formative time for guitar. I took lessons with him probably for about 3 years,
Wow.
maybe more. He turned me on to like so much stuff, dude. He was like telling me, he was like because I started out playing rock, dude. I was like super into rock and metal and like the heavy stuff, and
Mhm. Yeah.
he encouraged that, and he basically wanted to not only teach me the tunes I wanted to learn, but he said, hey man, if you dig that, you should check out like Jeff Beck or something,
Oh,
or
okay.
check out another player, or check out, oh, you think you dig Metallica, well check out Marty Friedman and Megadeth. That guy
Oh.
kicks the shit out of Kirk Hammett or whatever. Like everyone's opinions aside, but
No,
he opened, yeah, he opened me up to all these other players.
right.
So, and him also being a huge jazz cat too, I kind of would have never known, because he was kind of teaching me and guiding me in what area I was interested in.
Right.
So
Right.
I owe a ton of my development to him. And he would tell me, he wasn't like super crazy hard on me, but like he saw that I was serious about it. And
Right.
as we kind of developed a relationship over the years, he was like, okay, dude, you got to practice this and do this, et cetera, et cetera, scales and development, and listen to this and do this. Um, and then kind of as I started to develop, I got more bitten by like the guitar. I started to see what was out there and what you could do with guitar, mainly in the rock vein. So I discovered players like Joe Satriani,
Oh
Steve
man.
Vai, John Petrucci,
Oh,
Eric Johnson, all
yeah.
of those players, and those guys knocked me out. I was
It's
just
like
like,
amazing what they can do with a
yeah,
guitar. It's like it's
it blew me away that they were playing instrumental music, right? It blew me away that they were doing all this crazy stuff with the guitar, and I was like, oh my
amazing.
god.
Yeah.
So once I came back to my next lesson with Chris, I was like, dude, I want to learn this Satriani tune, and he was like, well, you're gonna make me work now, huh?
You're like, teach me this. He's
Yeah,
like,
teach me this. Yeah, so him being a fantastic player, obviously, we threw on the CD. I think it was at that point. Yeah, it was CDs,
it was CDs
and
back in the late
I
'90s.
know we kind of just finished out the cassettes. I was much younger. Anyways, the CDs, threw it on, and totally, man. Like he's such a fantastic player. He basically, took a bit of time to figure it out and kind of rough out the tune for
Right.
me, and we did a lot of lessons like that, man. And just him not only showing me like, oh, you want to play I don't know, Summer Song or whatever, he's like, that tune is an A mixolydian,
Right.
and he was like, here's the notes, and if you should really learn what this means and where this is on the fretboard.
Right.
And he said, for me, when I think A mixolydian, literally almost like lights light up on
Yeah.
the fretboard. Like I
The
can go here, here, here,
fretboard
here,
just
here.
takes
Yeah,
a certain shape and form. Right.
yeah, like fretboard mapping.
Right.
So I was like, oh,
Which
so
is
that
like
kind of,
the which is like the amazing thing about studying with a teacher is that
yes,
it's not just anymore like about, okay, I put my fingers here to make this sound correct. It's like,
yes,
oh, do you want to know why that is like that is? Why is
yes,
it in this scale, and what is that, how does that translate to the fretboard, and how can you
totally.
improvise over it? I mean, that's some of the I had similar experiences with my first teacher who was Keith Allen. I don't know if you
Oh, it kind of rings a bell,
the
sort of.
pedal, yeah, he was a
Petaluma.
Petaluma teacher who really was amazing for me. All the things you're saying,
Cool.
kind of same thing for me. Like opened the doors. And
Yeah.
what struck me about what you were saying about Chris Pimentel is a good teacher will basically go with where you're at
Oh yeah.
and what your interests are, and say, okay, you like Metallica. All right, here's the
Yep.
next level. Here's the next
For,
step.
yes.
Not better or worse, just a little more involved with the guitar.
Yep.
Here, you like this. Here's this, And instead of being like, well, on page 3 of my book, no matter what you like, you must do this,
Pretty much.
So yeah, and we've
Doing the soft sell.
all seen that. But we were lucky, I think, in having really great teachers because I had a very similar teacher who was so amazing in opening the fretboard to me and the
Hmm.
theory aspects and that kind of that kind of customization to say, okay, Scott, you're into this, you have these skill sets, and now
Hmm.
I'm gonna go from where you're at. So it sounds like that's
Oh man.
what's happening.
Dude, absolutely. Yeah. So that's the nail on the head for sure. Like he realized, yeah, that, and he tailored the lessons literally towards what I wanted to learn. And it opened so many doors to me because like he was such a great player himself and obviously had dabbled in all of these genres. So he
Well
could tell
trained
me
in all styles.
yeah, he literally was like quoting, like I think he told me at one point I won't forget of Satriani quote. He said, "I just practice your scales maniacally." Right? He told me he read that in a Satriani interview or
Wow.
something, and I was like, "Oh shit, okay." I was like, "All right, this is yeah." So
That's
it's like
yeah.
really from an early time kind of opened my eyes to like the dedication or discipline that it would take to get to a level like that.
Right.
So the teacher was absolute of importance for that. So
That's awesome. Really great to hear. So let's talk about when we met. You and I were both in jazz ensembles, and we
yes.
both were playing. So talk about that. What because I find it fascinating. A lot of my subscribers don't play jazz,
Hmm.
but I'm hinting at it because
Nice.
I've started to do some videos on chords a little more advanced, whether it's 7 chords or 9 chords. Um,
Cool.
and I remember I knew seventh chords for a while, and I have a lot of subscribers who maybe are just starting to play seventh chords. So
Nice.
it's intense to be like, all right, just play a 13, a flat 13 chord all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So there's like a transition to more advanced vocabulary. So I'm
Hmm.
actually curious because I don't think I've asked you personally what got you into jazz, and also how was that for you? What were some of the things that kind of made sense to you in the beginning when you started to look at jazz?
Totally, man. No, yeah, totally. Good question. So mainly it was a little bit I don't know, I would say self-centered of a decision for me because in my development as a musician I kind of wanted to go to the next frontier, right?
Right.
And all from studying with Chris and then just playing guitar after a while, I got somewhat comfortable in the rock idiom and never ever I don't think ever really fully master anything, but I was like, what else is out there? And I knew that I
Well, I
wanted
got to
to
stop you there. That was a
yes.
really interesting thing you said. You never
Yeah.
master anything.
Yeah.
That is something that I try to think about. That to be constantly be a student. And
Dude. Yeah.
I heard Albert King. Just a little quick anecdote.
Yeah, totally.
Albert King and
Yeah.
Stevie Ray Vaughan had an interview for one of like a blues DVD. It wasn't a DVD back then, but
Yep.
a blues tutorial. And Albert King is Stevie Ray Vaughan's one of his idols.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And he said to Stevie, who was king of the world as far as guitar, he said, "You're never there," and that's the one thing that makes people great. I think is to think you've never truly mastered anything. And
Oh yeah.
I hear great composers and artists doing that type of saying that type of thing. So I just wanted to highlight
Yeah.
that for everybody.
Oh yeah, totally, man. It's true, and like yeah, as soon as I mean, a huge advantage of the internet and information everywhere now. I could literally sit here and just look up a thousand guitar players that smoke me, and it's
Right,
just like that's true. It's humbling and it's also for me inspiring,
right,
right? And it's just like, but anyways, super good point.
yeah, right,
Um, but back to the jazz thing is I had been doing rock and I was in rock bands slash metal bands and playing regularly and I didn't go to college right after high school. I probably spent at least, man, a good 4 years, honestly, just working like a day job and then playing in my
Wow.
bands and
Good
playing.
for you.
So that was fun. And but eventually it got to the point where I was like, man, I want something more, right? With my music. And
You hit a ceiling. I have a similar experience.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And I knew that I wanted to, like, get to the next frontier. And for me, that choice was going and studying music formally
Cool.
in college, right? And I was in high school, I was in jazz band and all that good stuff. And but there was like a million guitar players, and it was it was hard to stick
Yeah.
out or get, like
There's more
actual.
guitarists than any other instrument, and
Oh yeah, dude, that's for sure.
yeah,
Um,
so fun. Yeah.
so yeah, and in a lot, some of it was geographically based too. I really liked the Sonoma County area, where we live right now,
Yeah.
and I looked at all of the surrounding schools, and the Santa Rosa Junior College looked like a really great option. I read a lot of great things about teachers there in the music department specifically, and
Oh,
a lot of what they were offering was mainly like jazz and classical, which
yeah.
you kind of find in a lot of music departments everywhere, right? And unless you're at a really specialized school, you're kind of jazz or classical for the most part.
Those are the traditional academic pillars.
Yeah, totally. So me being like, man, I want to study music and I want to play my instrument as much as possible. I super dig classical, and would play a bit of classical guitar, but jazz for some reason, I don't know. Again, it was another one of those kind of cloud parting moments, and was like, go check out jazz,
Yeah.
um, for me. And I got in there. Yeah, it's like, and then
So exotic and interesting. Yeah. Mhm.
totally, dude. And then basically, as soon as I heard like Wes Montgomery playing, I think it was probably Smoking at the Half Note or something.
Oh,
And I was just like,
what a
what? Yeah, I was like, oh my God. And that really kind of cued in just his playing. I mean, what can you say for Wes? I mean, this guy just like, oh my God, like a monster. Just to hear this like wall of sound and coming out of the guitar. For me, it was a similar moment like after I heard Satriani and Vai and all those guys. I was like,
right.
so me having a natural curiosity and wanting to further my skills, I was like, dude, I gotta do that. I gotta figure out what's going on there,
Right.
because this is stuff I haven't heard. And it was like the next frontier. I feel like I found a gold mine. I was like, oh,
Right. Right.
yes. So then naturally, with studying jazz in an academic environment, you start to learn what makes it tick, right? You're
Yeah.
kind of getting under the
What the
hood and
behind it. Yeah.
learning theory. And for me, and then I could then directly translate it to my guitar, right? So I immediately got home and was like, what was that,
Right.
C7 they were talking about? I was like, oh, you're stacking thirds. Oh, okay. And then that forced me to learn the whole fretboard. Um, and, because I want to know where these notes are they're talking about. And for me, jazz kind of just had that curiosity for me, and I really liked that it was improvised music, right?
Yeah.
Because I'd always loved improvising, right? Like
Yeah.
typical guitar player, whenever we played some rock shows and stuff, I usually tried to take an improvised rock guitar solo.
Yeah.
So I'd always loved to improvise in general. And
Right.
once I figured out that's what jazz is all about, man, I was like, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's free. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's really illuminating because I think my journey to jazz was kind of similar in the fact that I basically it wasn't something that I was brought up with. It wasn't something that was in my ear. But when I found out what it was about, like you're kind of saying, and
Hmm.
a lot of my subscribers may be thinking, oh well, I don't play jazz, so how does this relate to me? There would be two or three things I could think of that it can relate to anybody at this moment. One
Hmm.
is if you want to understand theory on the guitar. If you want to understand the fretboard, classical and jazz are the sort of the long game, or sort of the big picture of understanding music, right?
Hmm.
More or less. That's why academia has those two options, more or less.
Yeah.
Jazz is like American music, whether it be blues, which jazz kind of came from blues,
Totally.
rock, rock is kind of, especially rock and roll, is kind of the blues straightened out and not swung or boogie woogied and just do 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 do.
Yep.
So blues, rock, and pop kind of came to be around the same time that jazz did, and jazz was this just ultra amazingly complex theory stuff that was full of soul and full of expression. So it wasn't like it was too intellectual and not fun to listen to, right? But it was
Hmm.
full of full of soul, and it was taking the theory to the max. Is how as one of the ways I view jazz is you can really, if you understand jazz, you can play any style.
Hmm.
You can play basically any type of chord.
Totally.
And your technique is going to be improving because you're going to be doing challenging stuff. Anything instrumental is inherently difficult because there's no
Yeah.
singer to take over the ear. So
Hmm.
jazz will sort of force you to be like, all right, well, I got to be, the person who's kind of being able to hang with all these complex things going on. So you've got the theory, and then you've also got the improvisatory nature. And anybody who listens to rock, blues, pop, um, understands that really a lot of music is improvisatory, especially with jazz, because jazz is just filled with solos. And the rock solo and the blues solo, people take it for granted now, but that wasn't a thing back in necessarily big before rock. It was like pop music or like early stuff. They would just be the song. And nowadays the rock solo is what we all crave for, but really jazz is where you see that all the time, and that's just the norm. Everyone takes a solo, even the bass player, and
Yeah.
so it's not just the guitar solo or the keyboard solo, but everybody's, the horns are taking solos. So
Yeah.
I think that's something for anyone who's not into jazz currently to consider is, what can I gain from jazz? Because you don't have to be growing up, listening to everything about jazz to love it or to gain from it, to
Oh,
benefit.
absolutely, man. Yeah, and to carry on off that point, dude, like the improvisatory elements of jazz immensely help you develop your sound and your
Right.
voice. You always, as you further yourself into your musical journey on your instrument, you'll eventually come to a point to where you hear people talking about how do you develop your voice? How do you develop
Yes.
your sound to where
Yes.
people can know they're like, that's Mitch, like I hear it.
Yeah.
And jazz helped refine that for me like so much because yeah, you're kind of put into this musical form, and then you're said you're once you're learning and developing all of your theory and figuring things out, just saying okay, make stuff up within this,
What do you sound like? What are you going to choose with all these options?
yeah, yeah. Tell us your name, man. I
Yeah.
had, I think it was at the JC, one of our master classes there. I think it was the drummer Babatunde Lee, um, said something that still sticks with me, man. He said, when you're soloing, try to tell people your name, right? Like,
Mm,
like kind of
wow.
one of those super deep, like spiritual
That's
things.
amazing.
But I was like, damn, man, that's still gonna stick with me
That's amazing.
because yeah, you're constantly trying to do that. And for me, jazz like honed in on that, as opposed to just playing like a million notes an hour. And trust me, I come from a shred background.
I love
I,
that.
I
Yeah.
I love playing a million notes an hour. But like if you just do that without trying to tell people who your name is and try to really like say this is me, um,
Yeah.
it's kind of you know
I love that. I want to mention something about Bennett, but before I do, I forgot to
yes.
mention at the beginning of the video, everybody, Scott Decker has a YouTube channel, The Midnight Decker, and I'm going to put the link for his channel in the description below. And Scott Decker is a guitarist and a composer, if you haven't already noticed from our conversations. But you know, part of this is to give you resources to see what he's doing and to sort of learn from others. You know, and you want to
Yeah.
learn from as many sources as you can. So be inspired by what he's doing, and just wanted to throw that out before I forgot because I want
Yeah.
people to be aware of your channel, and
Thanks, man.
you're an inspiration to me. So I imagine you'd probably be an inspiration to others.
Dude, yeah, thanks, man, for sure.
So another comment I thought about was Bennett Friedman, who taught our
Oh,
courses at the JC.
be
He said,
freed.
yeah, Bennett, yeah, he said you should practice every day. And now I'm trying to inspire my subscribers to do this. You should practice every day because when you play, it's a representation of who you are. And
Dude,
it's
that's huge.
connected with the thing you said about, give us your name, tell us your name. So um, I was guilty of, slacking off. I still am.
Dude,
And
we all are.
yeah, and
Yeah.
we go through phases, right, where we're productive and we're not. So maybe this is a good segue into practice routines because I have students who ask me sometimes, um, should I do a routine? Should I do the same amount every day? Should I just go for it and just
Mm.
try to be um, motivated by instinct, or should I have something regimented? And it's actually something that is kind of personal. I feel like everybody's different. For me, I actually, I'm going to be honest, maybe it's a shock to some of my students. I don't have the most regimented practice routine. I generally I play every day for sure, but I generally will do something a little different. And so it's not the clearest answer that I can give sometimes. So I'm curious as to you, what, and I'm not looking for any right or wrong answer, but just sort of your
Oh,
opinion
yeah.
on practicing. What is that process for you and what would you recommend?
Oh, for sure, man. That's much like you. I've always been on the quest for practice, and I've been super curious. I always feel like it's kind of like that, like fanboy question to ask like all of your heroes, like, what do you do for? But I do it anyway, so I don't care. I want to know. And
Totally.
to touch on the Bennett Friedmanism real quick, he said another nugget quote is he literally just said, "How good do you want to be? You gotta practice, right?" And I was just
Wow.
like, "Damn."
That's amazing.
So
So simple,
yeah,
so clear.
totally, dude. So yeah, practice. I'll totally agree. Practice is eventually becomes a personal thing as you start to develop more of a relationship with your instrument and music and your knowledge and
Right.
everything. I can say that when I first started at the JC and I was going full bore into jazz, not knowing anything, um, I had a very strict routine to where I spent I don't know how many hours a day, probably all of them, like go like just going through like everything from scales to modes, like almost everywhere I was, like
Wow.
where I was like, oh, I got an hour break right now, you know.
Wow.
Um,
Great.
so what I did was. I went literally once I started to learn about the modes, right? I was like, okay, I'm gonna go through all modes right now. I'm gonna do the scales, so Ionian, Dorian, Methylene, all that good stuff,
Right.
and just go as much as I know on them. Go through all of those,
Hmm.
and then like to a metronome and religiously, right? So I was extremely regimented in the beginning, just because that's kind of my personality. I'm kind of
Cool.
obsessive.
I could tell. I mean, that's why I'm interviewing you because I'm like I could tell that you were really serious about it at an early age, and that's tough. I mean, that's so
Yeah.
so so. Is it like going through what's most exciting for you, or is it thinking, no, I was told I need to work this mode, I need to work this exercise, I need to get the metronome higher and higher. What were some of your goals, short term and long term, when you were
Sure.
practicing?
Yeah. For me, once I got into jazz, playing super fast wasn't ever really much of a goal. In fact, I still when we're into tempo bebop tunes. I can't hang much these days,
Anything past
unless I'm
yeah.
unless I'm shedding the hell out. But that's a whole other story. So for me, I think it was the quest that I'm getting better and learning something. There is a little bit of like ego involved. Of
Oh,
course, we're all musicians, we're performers. We want to show
want to
that
be the
we're
best.
I know we want to show that we're competent on our instrument,
Yeah.
right? And if you're going to be out there performing, you owe it to yourself to at least be like, dude, yeah, I totally practiced this. Check it out.
Right. And people are
Um,
impressed by speed. I know it's kind of
yeah,
well, superficial, but I mean, hey,
yeah,
we live in a world where speed is appreciated.
absolutely.
But it's not everything.
Oh, it's not everything. And I had my years of rock playing and studying shredders to kind of be like, all right, I've kind of figured that out. But where jazz really helped me was literally to like slow that down and really kind of think about what I'm playing.
Right.
But as far as yeah, the practice routine, it was really structured for me. Like literally, I went through all of my scales on a daily basis, mainly modally centered. So I went through all the modes until I really felt like I had them under my fingers. And that's kind of like it was in direct relation to Bennett's kind of. Bennett was, you studied with him for sure. He was a stickler, man. He would
Oh,
call you out and he would say, "What was that?"
oh,
And that always made me like crap my pants, dude. I did not want to be the guy that was called out, but it happened all the
oh,
time.
yeah.
So
I think he kind of enjoys picking on guitarists a little bit.
he did, dude, absolutely.
I
So
was like, whoa,
yeah,
I am so far from being where I want to be
yeah,
in Bennett's eyes,
yeah.
which was helpful. I mean,
And he knew it, man. He was such a brilliant educator. He knew, I think, about how much he could really like push
push.
certain people, and
Yeah.
it was to their benefit. So again, it was that teacher relationship. For me, I wanted to like show competency and maybe go above and beyond,
Yes.
like just so he would not have anything to say about me.
Yeah.
Of course, that never happened, but that's what I was striving
But
for.
you're hoping one day, he'll
One day.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The
So
funny thing is he's always
yeah.
criticizing his own playing, probably. So
Oh, dude.
he'll never stop criticizing anybody because he's even
Oh,
it's
hell
like
yeah.
even where he's at, he's like, well, I could have done this better. So
Oh, absolutely, man. And like at the it was kind of a smaller building. We could hear him practicing
oh,
every morning.
every
Every morning.
morning, the
Yeah,
pentatonic thing,
his pentatonic thing. Yeah, I was like, that's B for Eid. So
Hey,
yeah.
he told us one day that he says he's done that every day for something like 30 years.
Oh, dude, yeah,
I hope my
absolutely.
subscribers hear that. He
Yeah,
did a
that's
pentatonic exercise for 30 years every day.
every single freaking day. So that's the guy that was like, inspiring me at the time. I was like, oh my God, if I could have a shred of that type of discipline, I'm gonna be better for it.
Yeah.
So I took kind of hand in hand everything I was learning from a theoretical aspect, and then I structured my practice to be like, okay, so I'm gonna do modes, and I wanna, for me, like I wanted to be fluent in like scale playing because we're doing a lot of improvised playing, and coming from a rock background, I was like, well, improvisation and guitar solos are just like single note lines, right? So I really wanted to get proficient just like single notes. So I was doing a lot of scales, metronome work, and at that point it was pretty structured. So like I said, modes, and then minor, major, all that good stuff.
You went through all 7 modes and improvised over all of them and ran them in different speeds, different patterns.
Yep, for sure.
Wow.
And the arpeggios, yeah, and the associated arpeggios with all
Arpeggios
those.
1-3-5s.
Yep, one through five, one through 5-7 for sure. I probably still have like a file on my practice routine, dude. Yeah. Oh my God, I have it right here. Oh my Lord. So yeah, it's like, yeah. So scales: mixed Lydian, Dorian, Lydian dominant, Locrian, pentatonic, alter dominant, diminished, jazz minor. Right. Yeah, it's all here, man. And then
Wow.
arpeggios. So yeah, it's for me
Wow.
super regimented, and
That's,
like like, dude, here I could just share the screen with
yeah,
you
share
real
the
quick
screen.
if you don't
Yeah.
mind. Hey, okay, so check it. It's just a notepad file. Oh, screen sharing is disabled. My
What?
bad.
Oh, it's probably
Bec-
an option that I have.
Yeah, if you make me host, I think I
Oh,
can share my screen real quick.
let's
I'll send it right back to
let's
you.
make you host. How do I do that? Because you're the Zoom master. Um,
Oh, yeah, no worries, dude. Click the participants
okay.
button, and then you'll be able to see participants, then click more on my name, and then you
Okay.
make host.
Click more, make host. Perfect. Thank you. Look at this
Right on,
guy
dude.
is. He's also a
Oh,
tech wizard. He runs a. You
yep.
running a tech.
Do the IT consulting. Yep. When I'm not playing guitar, that's for sure.
He's a man of many
You know,
talents.
I
So I think
try.
I made you a host.
Um, right on, dude. Okay, so I'll show you just this notepad file. So check this out. And this is like old, dude. So check this out. So here it is. I literally just typed it out. It's
Like
not any
text, like a
notation.
text file. I love it.
Yeah, so I literally just would look at this stuff, right? And I'm like, okay, so here's what I need to do. I kind of veered away from like, any notation or tab exercises, because of course, as with guitar players, stereotypical sight reading, not that great, right? I'll
Right.
definitely go over a chart and want to memorize it, but anyways, that's another conversation. So
Totally.
I would have this in a text file, and I'm like, okay, here's all of these. I would literally go down the line,
Wow.
and then I reach my arpeggios, all
Oh,
right, and then I say, here's what I want to work on: my major nines, seventh chords dominant, flat nine, sharp nine, all that good stuff. And then I have the chords out of specific modes that I would do the arpeggios out of all these.
wow.
Um, so you can see like that.
I,
Yeah, when I
I
say
feel
it
like
was
you're getting a
regiment,
sneak peek into like why I was like so inspired because I'm like, geez, because I'm kind of a little all over the place with my practicing, and you've always had a good handle on all these techniques, all these things that I mean, this is amazing. I mean, uh,
right?
I wouldn't be surprised if some of my subscribers took screenshots,
Oh,
and
dude, yeah. I
I don't
mean,
want to
please.
encourage that because maybe you want this to be just yours.
Absolutely. Oh no, please, man. Like music's
Oh
about
man,
sharing, dude. So
this
I
is
mean, do
amazing.
whatever you gotta do. And I'm kind of like free flow, right? So I literally typed here practice sight reading out of real book. So that's like like another
I used
thing.
to do that. Did you ever do that
Totally.
with the Omni book, Charlie Parker?
Yes, dude.
Oh my
Oh my
goodness.
gosh, bird
I
stuff
used
is insane.
I used to
And
just
then
put out his book and then just like sight read for
yeah.
20 minutes, and I was exhausted.
Dude, oh my God, it is exhausting.
Yeah.
And like eventually when I figured out cool things that would work, this is kind of like I haven't probably touched this file in years, but it was on my desktop. So anyways, I would make little notes like during my
Mm,
practice. I'm like, hey, scales that work with a minor seven chord, Phrygian built on the fifth scale degree. I'm like, oh damn, all right, let's try that.
okay.
Um, so yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff
That's
during,
amazing. Yeah, because you can work on an isolated idea. That's what something I really
yeah,
benefit from is like, okay, let me think about one idea. Let's say I superimpose a minor four over a
yep,
one chord
dude,
as a
yeah,
tension and resolution. Now, this is more of an advanced theoretical concept than somebody who's just learning basic theory. So,
totally,
but
totally.
let's say you do that, and then you focus on that for 10 minutes,
Yep,
and then you move on, and then when you're playing, it comes out and you're playing a little bit
totally.
because
Oh
you've
man,
isolated it out. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, so that's kind of like a sneak peek a little bit at my practice, kind of in my more formative jazz
So
years.
cool.
Yeah, so I'd be happy to send this to you too if you want, man. I'll
Sure.
stop the screen share, but I'd be happy to send it over to you.
That would be amazing.
Yeah,
I'll,
yeah, I'll,
I'll only use it sparingly for my own teaching purposes here and there. I
of
won't just
course.
completely copy and paste it. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Oh no, take whatever you want, man. No worries.
That's
But
awesome.
kind of, yeah, so that was kind of like my formative years, and I did that for a while while initially learning jazz because I kind of got obsessed, and again, it was all inspired by wanting to not get called out by my teacher. Like that's just kind of the obsessive kind of personality that I tend to have.
Amazing.
So, anyways, so that was huge. But then, as I studied more and got way more into the jazz realm and discovered other players like, Julian Lage, kind of more modern players. Like I've
Oh,
super inspired by that guy. In fact,
oh, that's
that
fun.
guy is so inspiring to me. I have to like limit, weirdly enough, like how much I listen or try to transcribe, because out of fear that I will try to just start to sound like him,
Right.
poorly,
It's almost
you know,
too, too
you know.
influential. Yeah.
Yeah, you know how that works. Like that guy's just trying to sound like that guy.
Yep.
So anyway, something that he said after asking him about practice is doing a routine like I just showed you is very important for kind of getting chops and connecting
Right.
mental concepts to the fretboard. But he said after you just run scales and scales and scales and scales after so long, you kind of start to sound that way, at the gig,
Right. Oh,
right? You start to sound that way at the gig.
so,
Um,
so it's such an important point.
Exactly. So then I was like, oh.
Mm.
And that forced me to kind of reevaluate practice in
Wow.
general, because
That's
I
super.
was like, well, that's true. And this is all like journey based, right, man? So I'm not saying that doing that stuff was bad or not
Right.
beneficial,
At that
but if,
time that you had mastered
yes,
scales, that was what you needed to hear.
yeah, oh, dude,
Because
yeah,
if you had just heard that when you hadn't mastered the scales, you're like, well, I don't even know.
I don't
I
even
don't
know.
sound like the scales because I don't even know the scales. So
Yeah,
it's not like you're
exactly.
saying don't learn the scales. You're
Totally.
saying that there's a certain point to where you need to grow from
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah, because you start to like, even though like I don't think I've mastered any or most of those by any means, like you kind of get to the point to where you're like, there's got to be something more, and that's where the personal aspect of
Mm.
practice comes in to play for me, because I'm like, and it's going to be a personal journey, because I heard that quote from him, and that forced me to be like, oh, so
Yes.
where do I go now? Like what do you do?
Oh,
And
okay. What do I do?
so what do I do? So that's where you kind of like pick and choose, like, oh, so he said that, blah 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 blah, let's do that. So what Julian was saying, and at that time, he's a super active musician, like crazy. He
Oh,
literally said, he's like, man, I pretty much practice what's literally in front of me. Like if I
huh.
have this project or this recording session coming up, or I need to work these tunes, like I will delve into what's right in front of me, and deconstruct and practice as necessary.
Wow.
And another huge portion is, along when I do revisit that scale stuff, that I do occasionally,
Yeah.
like now other things blossom out of it. Like say
Right.
I'm practicing, I
Love
don't know, like pentatonic stuff, um tunes will come out of it, right? And they're like, well, I'm just practicing,
it. It'd be
like,
a
oh
writing
dude,
exercise.
yeah, this
I
cool
love
melody,
that. Yeah.
yeah, this
That
cool melody just happened. So
right.
you get,
You're doing the repetitive things that all of a sudden you're so comfortable with that your creative self kicks in.
yes,
And
exactly.
actually practicing can lead to more creativity than
Oh
just
yeah.
waiting. If I just sit around and think I'm waiting for the perfect song to come. And this is
Oh
what I
dude.
tell my students. I say, listen, you got to be warmed up. Your fingers have to be flying.
Yep.
Worry about the brilliance and the genius later after you've been practicing, practicing, practicing. Because there's nothing wrong with getting bored, right? And
Yeah.
let me quote another, since we're quoting teachers here and different
Yes.
influences. Bruce Foreman. I studied with Bruce Foreman at
Oh
US,
yeah.
and he said, when you get bored of your playing or your practicing, that's a great sign. It means
Mm.
that you're ready for new things.
Yep.
So let's say you're practicing, like you said, a pentatonic scale, and you know this thing down and out, and all of a sudden, your bandwidth. You'll appreciate this because of tech talk
Yeah.
decreases because you don't need to focus as much on the scale.
Hmm.
Like before, when I teach my students, I have students privately, and I'm like, all right, here's this new scale. They're really focusing on learning the notes. They can't possibly create a song right away from that necessarily because
Hmm.
they need to get comfortable. So you get comfortable, and then you get to the point where you're practicing, and all of a sudden you're not focusing on it anymore. And instead of just being
Hmm.
mindless, let me turn on the TV and not think, and I was just moving my fingers. You keep
Yep.
being focused, and then you allow your creative mind to kick in, like you're saying, and all of a sudden you're practicing some old scale, and a song pops up, or
Totally.
a really interesting riff that you had never thought of before.
Yeah.
It's a really
Dude,
powerful.
that's huge. Yeah, and to touch on your point of being warmed up, yeah, I like another thing back to Julian, like he kind of I told him that like I never feel like I'm allowed to be creative or like have fun or whatever, quote unquote, on the instrument until I'm warmed up, until I've done my scales or whatever. And he was like, "Well, that's BS, man, because like you'll eventually get so busy to where you can't really do that." Right? So sometimes again to tailor how well to discuss how practice is so personal, it's you might not have that much time, man, so you have to like I got 20 minutes right here, so it's like maybe I'll if you have to feel warmed up. And me personally, I do, right? I just need to
Yeah.
like do like run a scale or two or whatever before I'm like, okay, my hands are doing what I want.
Now I'm feeling normal and I'm ready
Yeah,
to.
yeah, I'm feeling normal. It's just like the normal me. It's because I'm like getting old or whatever, dude. But yeah, dude, that's one thing. It's like I just want to feel like I have a connection to the instrument first, and then I'm gonna practice my tunes or whatever that I have on my plate right now. And sometimes that's not it though. Like on a different day, what I've been doing for maybe the past couple of years, not consistently, but behind me, I have just a tiny little whiteboard calendar, and
Okay.
it's by a week, so it's 7 days, and I just write the date in, and then I literally sit there for man maybe 5-10 minutes, and I think about what I want to try to focus my practice on these days. Like I'll just read the calendar here. Like right now, Monday, what today's Wednesday. So Monday was transcription, and like it's random. So like I'm vaulting immediate to the future. We can talk about what happens in the middle too, but just what I'm doing these days, and not completely consistent because life, happens. But at least this week, inspired by you reaching out, man, I was like, hey, man, let's get the practice thing going on.
Nice.
So what I'm doing is it's just a 7 day thing. So Monday was transcription, and then for what I do for transcription is while I'm working during the day, and I often am always listening to music as much as I can. I keep a list when I hear cool stuff, right? And I got that idea from this cool session player. You probably have heard him, Carl Verheyen,
Oh
guitar
man.
player, super tramp. He was like a first call session guy in LA.
Robert Hyde.
Um,
Yeah, he's in LA. When I was there,
yeah,
he would make occasional appearances to USC, and yeah, he's
yeah,
a monster.
crazy. Anyway, so I watched some interviews. Whenever I find a player I really like, I obviously listen to them, but what I do is I like to just try to find interviews, right? I want to hear them talk.
Yeah, I
I want
want
to
to hear.
know who they are as a person. So what I heard him say was, dude, when you're listening to tunes and you hear just a part that you like, take a note of it, and learn it,
Wow,
right? So
big
I
fan.
have this, yeah, I have this running list of stuff I just want to transcribe, and it might not be a whole solo, it might not be a whole tune. It could just be like, dude, I really like that lick.
The
I
phrase.
want to, I want to learn it. So anyway, so that's transcription, and then I have band tunes. So Tuesday was practice tunes for my band,
Okay.
um, and then Wednesday voice leading, and they're all really kind of high level, they're not super specific. But voice leading, it's because I've come from a place to where to me I know what that means, right?
Right,
Like
right.
I'm gonna practice, my voice leading over certain changes and whatever.
You're gonna resolve
Uh,
certain tension tones to the next,
totally,
which you know that
exactly,
personally.
yeah. And I usually like practice that stuff as long as I can stand it, like
Yes.
like for now I'm like, all right, dude, I've done that. Now let's play over a tune or something. I don't know. And then so next day is just arpeggios, right? And these are just very general, but I'll sit there and look at it and be like, arpeggios,
Right.
how can I make this fun, right? How can I make this creative?
Right.
Oh, I'm gonna use. Okay, what was my teacher teaching me the other day, or what was I listening to? Oh, we were working on minor seven arpeggios. Oh, cool. All right, I'm gonna do that for a
How do
while.
you make it relevant to today? How do you make it something that
Yeah,
you're excited about
yeah.
right now?
how do you make it so when you sit down, you're not like paralyzed by like there's so many things,
Yeah.
right? You're just like, dude, what did I
A
just
million
hear?
things. I can't learn it all. Yeah.
Yeah, what did my teacher just talk about, or whatever, and
What's
he's like,
one thing I
okay,
can do that makes sense? Yeah.
yeah, totally.
You
And
know,
then I'll do,
go
yeah, and
ahead.
then acoustic tunes, and then composition, and then jam tracks. But that's just an idea. Like I'll sit and look at a calendar and just be like, what kind of general topic do I comes to my brain, and then I just try to um, focus my practice, whatever amount of time I have that day, on that subject, and then you
I
just
love that because it's so
yeah,
focused and it's also like a constant reminder about what you could be doing, and it's like
yep,
you might have done an arpeggio exercise and all of a sudden now you're off to some like we are talking about before, you're off to some creative idea,
yep,
and you're kind of building from that and you're having fun with it. But then let's say you run that to its completion, you record an idea, or
mm-hmm.
you find a cool thing. Then you're like, okay, let me go back to arpeggios. Let me go back to
Yes,
this whiteboard. Let me go back to my band tunes. Let me go back to my acoustic tunes. And
totally.
I have so many lists of songs. I have set lists for solo, jazz lists, play along lists. Here are my play along tracks I jam to.
Yep.
Um, Here are my theoretical ideas. And I'm not as regimented as you, but I think that we both share a passion for um, recording ideas, not recording necessarily audio, but recording ideas in a text format as well. About I can
Mm-hmm.
run these ideas, and I used to, type in all these ideas when I was, really thinking about jazz every day, all day.
Totally.
Now I'm doing a lot of rock, pop, R&B with the cover bands I'm in now and country and stuff, where I don't need
Nice.
to do that. So I actually have. So this is inspiring for me to actually get back to being like, well, even if I'm not performing this, I still need to do this. Um,
Totally.
by the way, I was in a YouTube wormhole, or YouTube sort of, what do they call it?
Yeah, down the rabbit hole, dude.
Down the rabbit hole on YouTube, and I found us playing with Julian Lage and
Oh,
in the Latin Jazz Ensemble at SSU.
nice. Oh, dude. Yeah, that's right. We did do those shows, man. Oh my God.
You
I
did
think
a-
I did. I stumbled across those years ago, and then I
oh,
remember they exist when you stumble on it. I was like,
yeah,
but oh, hell yeah, dude. That was so fun. Oh my
that was
God.
like over 10 years ago, probably. And
Yep.
Julian Lage was doing a residency
Yeah.
and at Sonoma State University where we went for three or
Yep.
4 days, and he played with us, and I believe our instructor was Kendrick Scott.
Kendrick Freeman.
Kendrick
Freeman.
Freeman, I'm sorry, Kendrick
Yes.
Freeman, yeah, who's an incredible
Killer.
um, percussionist, drummer, and so
Yeah.
Julian played with us, and we traded fours with him. I watched the video a few months ago.
Yeah.
But maybe I don't know, if I should leave the link in the description because my playing
Why not?
was so lackluster. Now I will.
No way, yeah, yeah, dude. Dude. I remember that, dude. I mean, well, compared to Julian, man, like we're gonna look like, little people on the guitar,
Oh
but
yeah, that
he's,
was
yeah. I
wonderful.
mean, just elevating to that level. That dude, that residency is like bringing back all kinds of memories, dude. Yeah, that was like a huge period of growth, like for me, just like
Right.
being around, a player that is so at a different level, right, than you are at that particular time is super inspiring. And I remember just one-on-one thing. I think I got to the room or rehearsal early, and it was just him. And I walked in, and I was like, "Oh my God," because I'm also a huge fan, right? And I can't help but fanboy out. But we were just talking about stuff, and he was saying, he's like, man, above all, like, for performance, people just want to be moved, right? And
Right.
that was another like nugget quote that I
Wow.
won't forget. He was like, dude, people just want to be moved. So it's like
That's
it
right.
kind of coincides with like saying your name and like the whole improvisatory aspect of jazz, and you really realize why you play music if you're performance, if you're out there playing and stuff, like wow, when you put it just that simple, it's like, yeah,
You
people
just want to be
people want to
moved.
be moved, man. You know,
People
that's true.
want to be inspired. People don't care about how much or how little you know. They want to be moved, right?
Totally. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, man, absolutely. Like knowing all this theory and like chops and playing a million miles an hour and everything is all fine and good.
Right.
But as we can see, like in the music industry today, like, dude, having a ton of chops and all that doesn't
Doesn't
necessarily
really.
matter. Dude, it's you
You
know, like
speak it.
it's
I mean,
good
that's
to
the truth.
have.
That's the
It's
truth.
good to have, you know, like absolutely. But like,
But can you reserve yourself to move somebody, right? To have feeling, to have
yes,
emotion. Yeah.
exactly.
And it's not
Yeah, I
always
mean,
speed or theory. Sometimes that isn't what's called for.
yeah, oh, dude,
Right.
totally, man. Yeah, like, Bill Evans, I think, notoriously said he's like, I play maybe 50% of what I hear in my head,
Wow.
maybe most
Oh,
of the time. Yeah, so
I love
Bill was huge on editing on the fly, you know, like, and we're as guitar players, it's so easy for us to just play so much, so much, so much
you
because
don't have to breathe.
we don't have to breathe, dude. And like while I was at SSU, I cannot tell you how many times almost every instructor always said too many notes, like to me, you know, I'm just
I've heard
like,
too many notes too many times.
yes, exactly. And probably to every guitar player, honestly.
Yeah.
But like
Right.
it's true. And for anyone out there that's curious about jazz, you know, that helped really refine me. Like, and just the constant like reminder, like, hey man, there's got to be some substance in there. You know, people
Yeah.
want to be moved, you know.
That's
And
a really
it was, yeah, it wasn't a slight on your playing. It was kind of like, hey, think of this differently. Like, you know, that you're playing a lot there, man. Um,
That's really a
yeah,
great point, is to think about how you can take what you know and make it presentable, make it also enjoyable for other people and
yeah.
yourself. And that's something that I always feel better about myself when I listen to myself and think, would I want to hear myself just going, you know,
Yeah,
uh,
totally, man.
and I might think, well, I'm a little stressed out right now hearing that, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good point. We're probably getting to the end because you know we've time flies, man. It's such a
Oh,
blast
tell me about it,
talking with
man. Good
you.
Lord.
I'd love to do it again.
Hell yeah.
And
Let's
there's
do it.
so much to talk about. I feel like we're just getting started.
Me
Uh,
too. Like, yeah, this is huge.
so I really appreciate everything you're saying, and I hope my students and subscribers will sort of, you know, take the time to look at it, everything that we're saying and say, okay, you know, maybe I don't get it all right now, but maybe I'll get to modes later. Maybe I'll get to
Yeah.
arpeggios later because this is something where we're kind of talking about everything that we're kind of condensing and compressing the last
Big time.
15, 20 years of our lives.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
So I really appreciate it. Is there anything that, let's say, I have some subscribers out there who are kind of learning guitar. They
Hmm.
know how to play songs. They know how to play bar chords. They haven't gotten into jazz yet. They barely understand theory and modes. Is there anything that any parting words you can have for them as far as you know? And it could be something we've already touched upon, but something
Totally.
that to keep in mind or some advice.
Totally, man. Yeah. So I would say it's an interesting information age that, you know, with the
Yeah,
internet and all that good stuff out there, it's very easy to get overwhelmed, right? So
exactly.
you can realize you can pull up, you know, social media on your phone and be like, oh my Lord, look at all these things these people are
Right.
doing. How do I get there, right? And
Sure.
to touch on everything we just talked about, it's a journey, right? Um,
Yeah.
it's you just have to literally take it a day at a time, and whatever works for you specifically, like maybe use some of the techniques that we practice routines that we talked about, literally approach it day by day, like what did my teacher just talk to me about, how can I incorporate that into my practice session. And if you stay disciplined and you do it on a daily basis, that you will also get to talk about your journey, you know, like you are on that journey right now. Don't
You're
get
living it.
discouraged.
Right.
You're living it. What you're doing right now is that's your journey, and to kind of try to really hone in to prevent yourself from analysis paralysis. Just really focus on, because you might say, man, I want to play that Van Halen tune, Rip Eddie, sorry. But
Yeah.
like first, like really focus on it. Take a month and just learn it, man. Like, like everything
Focus on
else is,
that one thing that's exciting to you.
dude, yeah, totally, man. I was just working on a tune. I literally spent like 3 weeks playing almost pretty much nothing but that one tune,
Really?
you know. And you'll get better at it, dude. Like I know it'll seem like, and in that time I was like, there's so much other stuff, but you kind of now have to really kind of like try to put on the blinders. So I
Interesting.
would encourage any fledgling student, like, yeah, man, like put on your blinders and get really good at one thing, because next month it's gonna be another thing. I mean,
I honestly just got a little bit of chills because what you're saying is in the age of information. So I'm just going to kind of give you my summary of what I just heard because this is powerful for me. In the age of
yeah,
information, everything's available. My students could attempt to learn everything, but then learn nothing, right?
yeah,
So in the age of everything available, what you're saying is you are excited about a song. You are excited about Eddie Van Halen,
yeah,
who as we just said, just passed away. And
yep,
I made a note on my channel. It's like
for
everyone
sure,
listened
man.
to him, you know.
Yeah, man.
So let's say you want to learn that. You want to learn, this solo, this technique. You actually, instead of inviting all the information, you actually sort of block out or put the blinders on and say, no, I'm just going to look at this because
Yep,
it's what my journey is. It's what my story calls for. I'm excited about this. This is what I'm doing now, not what the whole world wants me to do. Kind of.
totally, man. Yeah, because you'll remember that, right? You'll remember. You're like, dude, I remember when I took a month and I learned the eruption solo.
It'll be like a lifetime moment. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. So like that's
So,
what yeah, I mean that's what I got out of it. And like the one final thing like is same at college when we finished at SSU. I was talking to our instructor, who was Doug Leibinger, and he said, man, we throw so much stuff at you guys over a 17-week period. He's
right.
like, when I finished school, I just wanted to go and play this one tune
Hmm.
for a month, and like that's what I did. I had so much stuff leaking out of my brain, like, because you're
Wow.
bombarded. Like, I just want to focus on one thing for a month. So I would encourage any newer player, like, dude, just get lost in one thing.
That is so great. Really,
Yeah,
really,
it's just,
really love that point. Just get lost in one thing. That
yeah,
laser focus is like putting a magnifying glass over the sun and you have that beam
totally.
of light. So
Yep,
that's really great. Well, I thank you personally because actually that's inspiring to me personally because
yeah,
it
well,
reminds me that hey, we have a lot we could choose to do, but if we choose one thing with intention and with purpose,
mm-hmm.
we can actually not only get better at guitar, but we can create a memory for our life that I remember learning, this Pat Metheny solo or this
Yeah,
Julian Lage piece, and then that sort of can propel you to the next thing. So,
totally, dude.
well, Scott Decker, the Midnight Decker
The
is the
Midnight
YouTube
Decker,
channel,
right?
and the link is in the description below. And to be continued, I would love to sort of
Yeah,
do another one at some point. This is a chance for me to learn from my friends and my influences and
yeah,
my inspirations. So, really want to thank you for sharing your time, sharing your practice routine,
for sure, man. Yeah, thanks for
sharing all
having
the
me, dude. It
wonderful
was,
stuff. And hopefully, I'll be out to California on a personal note, and we can.
yeah,
We've played a lot together over the years. It would be great to do that again soon. So,
yep, absolutely, man. Whenever you're in town, hit me up. Yep,
yeah,
that'd
awesome.
be
Yeah,
awesome.
maybe we can share it with the channel and stuff. Uh,
Yes,
but tell Alina I say hi, and
definitely will, for
yeah,
sure.
but I miss you
Yep.
guys, and hope everything's well for you out there.
Yeah, we're trying to keep ourselves not on fire,
Yeah,
but
yeah, man. I'm,
we'll
I'm
see.
I'm hoping for the best for you guys. We actually had a lot of smoke out here today. It was awful. Uh,
Yeah,
Everything's really dry and hot. So
exactly.
stay
Yeah.
safe, and thanks again, Scott.
Likewise. For
And
sure, man. Thanps, Mitch. Dude, great times. Thanks for having me on.
great
Let's
times.
do it again.
Let's do it again. Really appreciate it. And yeah, man, take care and let's stay in touch.
Indeed. Yep, man. Sounds good to me.
All right, bro.
Yep. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you later, man.